Hi, welcome to Reclamation Corner. I'm Mark Thrasher. This is my 2008 GL320 CDI. I've been having some problems with the shock absorbers on the rear. I was getting a real metal banging sound on the passenger side rear. Now I know it's very difficult sometimes to really narrow down a sound from inside the vehicle, but I really believe that my shock absorbers on the back, especially on the right rear, are bad. So what we're going to do today is we're going to go ahead and we're going to pull the shocks out, which means taking a lot of the interior out and get those replaced.
So the first thing we have to do here is we've got to obviously take the wheel off. And what I've done, I've taken a couple of bolts, cut the heads off of them. These are M14 fine threads, as you see here. And this is about 6 inches long. And I cut the head off so I can just slide the wheel off once I get all the lug nuts off. This makes it a great deal easier to remove this wheel, especially up as high as it is. It's kind of heavy, but when you slide these bolts in here, it just makes it super easy. You can rock it a little bit like I had to do here, and you can just slide it right off. Just makes the job a whole lot easier. One thing to remember when you're doing this, you just got to remember to take off the little air fitting that goes into the airbag. This just threads in. Just be careful with this. It's brass fitting and it threads into a plastic part. I went ahead here, used the 3/4 impact because this bolt is absolutely incredibly tight. So I used the impact wrench, just made it a lot easier to get it off. And I dropped the bolt. I did get the transmission jack. I wasn't sure what was going to happen when I took this bolt out, but as you'll see here, I just jacked it up ever so slightly, and just relieving a little bit of this tension made that bolt just slip right out. I didn't have to pound or bang, it just slid right out. So very simple to get out.
I've got the car down off of the lift because now we've got to take out some of this rear interior portion so we can get to those 2 bolts on the top of the shock. I'll go ahead here in a minute. I'm going to lay the seats clear forward, but what I've got to do is I've got to get access to 2 points inside the car. I've got to get access to this area right here and this area right here. In order to do that, I'm going to have to remove these panels so I can swing them out. I've just got to swing them out enough that I can get behind there. That means that all of this right here, along with this trim piece, is going to have to come out.
So we need to take out this rear panel now, and you see on both sides there's 3 screws on each side. These are the ones on the passenger side. You'll see there's 1, 2, 3 of them. Those are going to have to come out. So this panel can come out. One thing to note here, that you're going to have access to all of this. But I do need to make a note here. The inboard screw is just a little bit longer than the outboard screw. So just kind of keep that in mind when you're taking this apart. You get ready to put it back together. Just a little update. I'll be getting ready to take this back trim piece off. I've got a couple of the screws out of the front. Sorry about the poor lighting here. But there's a screw down below here. Don't forget to take that out because you'll break your panel. One thing I did decide as I was going along here, I just decided to take these panels completely out. This is the screw that holds the seat belt in, and this was really kind of a pain in the behind to get out. So I just took some paper towel along with my torque bit and a ratcheting wrench, and I just used the toilet paper to hold everything in place so I could get down in there. So it was just really a tight squeeze to get my hand down in there. But as you can see here, once I got it in there, I was able to break that bolt loose and it just spun out by hand. Actually made it pretty simple. Well, as you can see here, I've got all of the interior panels off, the back panels. I've got these big foam panels that are actually over the wheel wells. Both of those have to come out. Actually, the WIS says to just cut these, but I'm not going to do that. I'm going to go ahead, pop a few screws out, take the wires off, and just lift those big foam pads clear out of there. No cutting is necessary, and I think it'll make for a lot cleaner job. As you can see here, I've got the foam pieces out. This is exposing the upper portion of my wheel well right here. And right here's those two bolts I was talking about. We're going to get out. I took that foam out. That's going to make it real easy to get to them. So these are my new shock absorbers. I did order them from 1aauto.com. They came really fast. I'm totally happy with these. It looks like they're going to be a real nice fit. They're packaged incredibly well. This was a nice heavy cardboard box. Had these foam inserts around the ends to kind of keep them protected. Really a nice way to ship things and fast. After I took the bolts off the top of the old shock, I did end up taking out this drag link bolt. Made it a lot easier to slide the old shock out and the new one in. I did have to pry down a little bit. But then I just pushed up gently by hand and I was able to slide this main bolt back in on the bottom of the shock. Make sure at this time you get up in there and you thread your air supply line back in. Just remember, it's careful. It's a little brass fitting threading into plastic, so don't go crazy when you're tightening it. So this is just a quick view of the shock once it's in. Everything's all tightened up and it's looking really good. Pretty happy with this. After I got the tires back on, obviously the last thing I needed to do once I put it on the ground was to torque all the lug bolts. These get torqued down to 135 foot-pounds. So I did this. I actually did both sides, then went back and just rechecked them again. But make sure you torque those bolts down to the specified requirements according to the WIS.
I ran out of gas last night. Got to be a long day, so I decided to come back today and finish up. I do have the panels back on the side of the car. The panels that actually exposed those 4 bolts we had to get to on the top of the shock absorbers. As you can see here, I've got both the panels back in. This one on the driver's side and the one on the passenger side, and I can tell you these were less than pleasant to put back in. You're just trying to line up everything. The only thing I can tell you is when you're doing this, take your time, be patient. If you get frustrated, walk away, come back, because these things, they're like wrestling an alligator trying to get them in there and get everything all lined up at the same time. But I do have everything back in. All I got to do is put the screws back in and put the top back on here. On a side note here, I own 7 Mercedes. I've purchased every one of them except this one from personal owners, and I have always had better luck doing that. This particular one I bought from a dealer down in Florida, and part of the issue with this is a lot of these dealers, the #1 guy in their organization is the cleanup guy, the detailing guy. Maybe not a lot. I'm thinking mechanics kind of take a back seat. I did find a lot of errors on this thing as I was taking it apart. And I found all kinds of sand and dirt down in here because too many times they only clean what you see. Just something to think about when you go to look at your next vehicle. Anyway, we're going to put all the screws back in this and this job will be done. I've got everything put back together. The interior is all back in the car. As you can see from this, it's turned out very well. All the parts are back in. I'm missing 2 small pieces. I don't think those were there to start with, so I'll be ordering those from Mercedes-Benz. But all in all, everything came out really nice. The shocks are back in, and this project is finished. Hey, thanks for coming along back at Reclamation Corner.